Welcome everyone. Claudia is here she graduated about a year ago from Syracuse University, and she did a lot of different things as an undergrad and kind of like took on VFX supervising roles as well as artist and kind of like motion designer and kind of like overall post-production, tried a little bit of everything. And after graduation, she applied for a bunch of really cool opportunities and she landed two big ones. And the first one she's going to talk about is the one she just finished up in the fall, which was the inaugural VFX coordinator program for Warner Brothers Discovery Access training. And then they have a bunch of other training programs for other post-production and visual effects areas of study. And then now she's at Disney. But she's going to talk about that maybe in the future. And it's more tonight about Warner Brothers. And then she brought a special guest with her that Claudia will introduce. So take it away, Claudia.
Hi everyone. Some of you know me, some of you may not. I think I recognize most of y'all. But I'm Claudia. I graduated May 2023, and I will be doing like slides and like we'll do a little recap of what happened like post grad and like how I came across this opportunity and how I'm at currently right now Disney also. A part of like this presentation is mostly going to be talking about the program that I experienced, but I will also throw in some tips for those who are going through post-grad or worried about post-grad, like a few interview tips of what I think made me stand out and help me get into the programs. So let me first do this. Okay, dokie. There we go. Okay. As for questions, I cannot really see it as much right now, but I will try to address them as we go. If not, I'll make sure to come back to it by the end of it or by like every slide. But for now, I hope you guys enjoy. So I'll be talking about what I experienced in terms of like fall of the Warner Brothers Access VFX Coordinator training. This is their first one that they did, but some background that Shane already gave is that I think this will be relevant later of like how I like applied, why I applied, and how I got in. These are some of the things I did. Besides being a television and film major at Syracuse University, I took Shayna's class for VFX. And then because I love VFX so much and love post-production, I wanted to continue with it. So I also took Shayna's cast-up class. And I did 4 projects, 2 graphics for student documentaries, 1 as a VFX supervisor for a student film, and I was also a main editor for another student film. So these will be all relevant later, I promise. I also did Citrus TV, which is the student-run news station at Syracuse University. I was part of it for 4 years. I also did some editing there, but I also learned other positions in news, but it helped me learn like fast-paced environments and different skill sets, which will also be relevant later. And then how I came across Shayna was because of my friends or classmates introduced me to SUP or Park Post. And I've been part of the club for about 3 years now, going on, I believe, 4. And then a side thing that helped with my portfolio that I think also helped with my job hunting and job searching was as a side gig or side projects, I did YouTube, worked on music covers, and collaborated with other individuals. So that's why. So since I'm going to be talking about the program, I wanted to invite one of the instructors that was part, who was a great teacher, mind you, and who's working in the industry. So I'm going to introduce you. Shane, do you want to introduce yourself first before I give the spiel that's on the slide?
Sure, I can. I'm Shane. It's nice to meet you all. So I graduated from Chapman a long, long time ago, like back in 2007. So I've been doing this for a hot minute. I've worked vendor side. I worked at 3 different vendors. My first one was Gradient. I worked at Gradient Effects for a little while, and then the second 2 vendors are no longer in existence. But it was Entity Effects, where I worked on mainly episodic. I did the Sarah Connor Chronicles. If anyone has seen that one, long time ago. There you go. And I also did the X-Files I Want to Believe movie at Entity. And then Shade VFX is where I spent most of my time. They also had a New York office. Oh, thanks. I love Our Flag Means Death too. It's a great show. So Shade is where I really kind of earned my chops. So I moved from coordinating at Shade to producing. Yeah, I agree. Poor Shade. At Shade, I was there for about 6 years, and I did a ton of projects there. Most notably, I did the Wolverine. I did the Muppets, which is my favorite show of all time, and I did the movie 42. I did just tons and tons of stuff over there. So, and then from there, I moved client side. So I've mainly worked for HBO in the past, which is how I became acquainted with this program. I've done client side producing for all of Sam Levinson's projects. We're kind of his team. So I do Euphoria, I did The Idol, I did Malcolm and Marie. Sam is fantastic. He's a great director and leader. We love him. I also did season 2 of White Lotus. I did Our Flag Means Death most recently with HBO. And then I still do a little side projects with them here and there while I'm not totally client side. So I'm really grateful to have been on a lot of really cool projects, and I'm excited to hear all of your questions.
So Shane was one of the 2 instructors. She was mostly like she started out as a VFX coordinator and now as a VFX producer. So she had a lot of insight throughout the course. And she's currently with Van Dyke Visual Effects. They do a lot of cool stuff. You guys want to check them out too. But yeah, so I thought she'd be a great person to segue into this program, and why I invited her to be part of our little meeting. So, okay, so going back to me, before we to explain how like I got into the program and what I've been doing after graduation, I after graduation, because I did a lot of graphics during the capstone class with Shayna, um, I was like, maybe I have an interest or passion in graphics. So a classmate of mine from the capstone class had invited me to work with this pet/dog training brand, and they called Possibly Woof, to be a social media designer. And they were trying to do like a refresh of their company and wanted templates of like designs and like their videos would look like. So I was a 1-month contract social media designer for them. Realized while I did have fun doing graphics, it was not my passion. And I was like, you know what? I need to stop going for things that I might not be 100% on quite yet, and should like take a break from burnout and like really consider what my main focus will be. So that's why there's a little bit of a gap. During the time, I realized I also, while I did work in news, like during the 4 years I was at Syracuse, while I know I was good at it, doesn't mean I have a passion for it, because before graduating, I was applying to a lot of news positions as like a producer, associate producer, or a writer, or also video. But then now it's like, nope, I'm not going to focus on more of like video editing and VFX, which the route I was like, for sure, those are 2 I'm only going to focus on. So then August and September rolls around, and I started to really hone in applying to a lot of places. I don't even know how many places I applied for. And lo and behold, because I was in the SUP Slack, Shayna posted a little poster that I'll show you guys after this about the Warner Brothers VFX coordinator training program. And after I saw it, I was like, yes, I will love to do this. I've been sitting around, not sure, applying, feel like I just have not enough qualifications for certain entry-level jobs, and this would definitely be helpful. So I applied, and around the same time I applied for that program, I also had applied for a Disney professional internship, which was for video and multimedia intern for the safety department. And both at the same time, I got in for the first round and had interviews at the same time. So it was very hectic. But for the Disney one, if you have any questions in terms of like what I was doing, we can save that for the end of it, of like towards the end once I finish talking about the VFX. But I want to focus on Warner Brothers. So just giving a spiel right now, I am in Disney Orlando. But that is what I'm doing right now. So next. Okay, so how I found out the program, I mentioned I found it through the SUP Slack. It's kind of quiet, but like, once in a while there's something out and then you grab it. And so the requirements for this image is kind of hazy, but this is the original one that I was received from the Slack channel, but there is the website for it, which I will show now if I can. Okay, so this is the website that the program is on and how you would access it and learn about the program and what it was about. And it explained to us like what the training will kind of look like, the sessions, what you're trying to prepare for, what they're looking for, and then it says check your eligibility. So for this specific program, this is the first time they did it. They did say they will do this program again. I confirmed it with them. I don't know if the requirements will change or stay the same, but like I said, this is about my experience for last fall. So you had to be 21, eligible to work in the US, be a California resident. If you're worried about the other programs being only in California, you don't have to. The other programs that Media Maker collaborates with big companies, are actually like kind of around the place. So there's some in New York and like around the world. So, but this one was specifically in California. And it says some exposure to VFX in any form. And when I initially saw this, I was like, oh, oop, oop. And then I got to the last part and I was like, oh, VFX type course at school or college, that's me. I guess I could technically have gone under post-production experience, but because I never worked in the industry itself, but only like on YouTube as a side gig, I was like, maybe not be that, but luckily I had the class with Shayna. And then self-starter, fast-paced, organizational, attention, knowledge on Google Sheets and Microsoft, team player, basic knowledge of computer and visual effects, passion for visual effects, and preferred but not required, have worked in a facility. So those were the things that they were looking for this program. And I already touched upon like, I had already really wanted to go into VFX, didn't know how to get into VFX. So I met that requirement. And I also had the VFX class and was a VFX supervisor for capstone class. So I was like, okay, I'm ready for the interviews. But before the interviews, or the first round of interviews, is actually kind of was a written one. So it was like your resume, application, and then also some questions. But then after that, it was oh, here it is. Okay. And then after that was it says one-way video interview, but it was actually, for us, it was a recording interview. So they gave us the questions and we record the answers to it on the program, the form they gave us, and you had to do it in one take. If you messed up, like you can do that one take again, but you couldn't like edit it out, which broke my heart because I love editing my responses and making sure I don't say but I had to just keep practicing until I got the perfect one take. And then the third one was a huge, massive interview where there was group activities, and then I met with 3 people who did a one-on-one interview also during that time, and that was kind of nerve-wracking because it's like you get to see like everyone who may or may not be like part of the program sooner or later. And also the one-on-one interviews were people from the actual industry, and I was like, wow, like I was like looking them up after the interview. I was like, they do so amazing work. But during this one-on-one interview, I think I really sold myself in this part was because Shayna had mentioned I did a lot of post-production stuff, like dabbled and everything. And I remember one specific person was very in awe and fascinated the fact that I also learned a lot of audio mixing, audio engineering, and also did a class for recording, doing mic setups and recording studio and using Pro Tools. And they're like, wow, I didn't know you're like interested in audio. I was like, well, I don't want to go into audio, but because I love post-production, I decided to go and learn it because it's always helpful with not only video editing, but also like keeping more aware of what everyone else is doing. So I think a second thing that really sold it for me in the interviews was another person was like, I don't love organizing as much, even though they were like in that position of a producer or coordinator or an editor doing like workflows. And I said, I love organizing. I love color coding. I love Excel sheets. I love doing all the organizing, seeing all the puzzle pieces fill together. And they're like, I wish I had you like as my assistant. And that like really resonated with me. That made me feel like, okay, one of the 3 interviews, I sold it. In terms of like for those who are interested in this program, I will definitely say if you love like I already mentioned like organizing all the shot lists or going through the script and like you have an imagination and you know how certain things works once you learn all the terminologies, you like will be able to like highlight all the pieces that will become VFX. If you're like that's your if you love that part of VFX when you're taking the class or you're just learning about it, I suggest taking this coordinator class because this will help you work towards that goal. For those who are only done artist work, this might be good in the sense that you have a broader knowledge of what happens in the industry, like how the different teams you'll be on, who you'll like talk to, how to respect like with the different managers and different like tree of hierarchy. But it's more in this is more for if you want to be a producer, managerial, finances. That's what I would recommend. There are other programs like I mentioned before. Currently, there's not a lot of programs open right now, but I do know they're going to be coming out soon. This is right now they have one in New York City for studio mechanics for set design, set dressing training. Sorry, but if you go on this website, which I will send the link into the Zoom chat, or Sheena might have already done that. Or it was in the email also. They've done all of this before, like in New York City, in Pittsburgh, somewhere in California. Like some of my classmates from this program, or we like to call it, we were called cohorts, did the post coordinator training and then came to the VFX coordinator training. So there's a lot to offer with over here. If you're looking for something more outside of school or if you graduated and outside of work. Because they were very understanding in the fact that some of them were still working and were just they were wanting to do a career change, and this was their way to learn and get the skill sets before doing the career change. So anyway, that was the kind of interview process, and the requirements that they were looking for. And it was mentioned that it was remote, and there was a lot of most of the classes could have been taken remote, but they did give us a hybrid option, so we can come in person to one of the Warner Brother buildings to take our classes, and that's why I mentioned hybrid, because we can come in to take the class. And they said you have on this flyer itself, like be near LA, like about 2 hours. It was more Culver City for this time around. It might change. Like I said, it was just for this time, but it was for Culver City. Before I go to the next slide, actually, this is how I found out about their program and why I decided to join it. I wanted to ask Shane what got her into the program and how she became an instructor for it.
Sure. I actually I did not know anything about media makers at all. Like I was totally like, it was new to me. Janet Muswell Hamilton, who is the head of visual effects at HBO, I was rapping on Our Flag Means Death. And she knew that I wasn't on like a big next show that I was gonna be super busy on. So she's like, hey, do you want to teach this class? And I'm gonna be honest, at first I told her no. Like, I've never taught anything before. I don't think that I am properly qualified to do this, because we also had to develop the full course. We had essentially kind of like an outline of like, hey, here's I think maybe what we should teach everybody. And I had to build out all of the classes. I had a co-instructor as well who was great, but he had never been on visual effects production before. He was a visual effects editor. So a lot of that was kind of on me. So I was a little bit intimidated to start teaching, but I think it went really well, and I'm really grateful that I did it. Um, Something also that's interesting is a lot of the hybrid. To be totally honest, I pushed for more of a hybrid environment because I feel like the cohort really did well with each other. And I feel like in a program like this, it's critical to get to know your cohort, because as one person gets a job and moves up, they're going to help everybody else. And I'm already seeing that happening. Like, a lot of the cohort still keeps in touch with me. I just had dinner with a bunch of them recently. We missed you, Claudia. You got to move back.
Oh, were
Um,
you at that specific dinner? Oh, I
mhm.
didn't know you were invited. I just thought it was in the
No,
Slack
Shayna just texted me, another Shayna, but she
channel.
texted me and she's like, hey, like, do you want to come? And I didn't want to, like, crash on a cohort dinner, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go. And I'm so glad that I did. And it's funny because I'm actually working with, one of the members of one of the graduates from the program. She's my client now. So she's a coordinator on the Sympathizer, and I'm one of her vendors, Natalie Birdsong.
Oh,
And so
Natalie.
it's
I was
so
supposed to
great.
say
So I can see
Angelica,
her.
but that works too.
Angelica's in post right now. So she's a post coordinator. She just got promoted. Really, really excited for her as well. But I pushed for more of an in-person environment so everybody could get to know each other and kind of be together. And also we did a lot of field trips. So we did, for example, a really fun field trip to Technicolor in the Mill, which is now all one company. And so they got to see, the DI process, but also like MPC is also a part of that, which is huge. So they got to go and see all of that, and they kind of did show reels, and they really rolled out the red carpet for us. Like, they, brought us, they made a whole like cocktail party for us. It was really nice. So we did that. We went to Zoic and saw that vendor as well. They did a similar presentation for us. And then the graduation event was also a networking event where they brought a ton of industry professionals, like a lot of people that I knew, a lot of friends, and met and interviewed all of the cohort for potential jobs. I know that a lot of them have gotten hired from that experience as well. So I do think if you're doing one of these programs, I know they're trying to keep them still location specific. And I think that that's great. And if you decide to go this way and do one of these, like, do as much in person as you can, do as many office hours as you can, and get to know your instructors, because they can help kind of push you in the direction that you want to go. Like, once I kind of understood what people wanted to do, I was able to like introduce them to different people and kind of help them move forward in their careers that way. So highly recommend getting to know your cohort, getting to know your people, because they will help you.
Yeah, it was so I agree. It was a great program. I still talk with the core. If you can't already tell, I was talking throughout some names. But we still like have our channel, and the networking was also, I believe, very helpful. It didn't help me necessarily in terms of the job I have right now, but I know it was like a really great practice in talking to people for the industry, and when I'm networking like right now throughout my current internship too. Um, so I also forgot to mention that the info session that's mentioned here, once you went to it, they did give you the application right away. So it was like first come, first serve in a way. And then afterwards, they did release the application. But just so you know, like there's sometimes it's kind of selective in that sense. So if you I'm not saying if you find it late, don't try to reach out, because I knew people who reached out way later and still were part of the cohort, but just also to be like on top of it. So okay, so this is an example of like what I knew before the training, because they were asking like in the interviews, why do you think you qualify? What is your basic understanding or what knowledge you have at all regarding to VFX? Because I took Shayna's VFX class, I had a basic understanding of shot lists, naming conventions, what pipelines, what kind of the basic pipeline would look like. I learned that there's much more in the training program, where it's kind of like mind-blowing with different programs, but I also knew the basic knowledge of being an artist. So because I think in order to really understand is like a coordinator does, I think you should have a little idea of being an artist. You know, it's not required, obviously, but I think it just made things a lot easier when when I was doing this class, because I was like, oh yeah, I know this. This needs to be like in consideration for the artist. And so that's what I would write down for being a coordinator and assigning those shots or making those shots. I did learn a lot of the basic terminologies, how to create the VFX, and then programs that were used, and also I used myself. So my experience with the program in general, I love the instructors. So Shane obviously is up there, and David was the second instructor. He is a VFX editor, so that's but he's based in San Francisco. But they were both very great, and they gave different perspectives, and that's why I really love like the back and forth and like the vendors, the client side, and that just how kind they were and the information they gave. There was just like abundance of like knowledge that they were willing to share. It was like, even like sometimes we will run like over the classes because there's just so much to talk about with the program and about the industry. But one of my other things that I loved about the program was they had a lot of guest speakers come in, and they're people working in the industry, but also different parts of the industry. So like, for example, one of the people that like came in taught us about like him programming certain things for a FileMaker, which is like most of you guys will know ShotGrid or Shotgun as like the organizing for a shot list, but FileMaker is also a classic in organizing shot lists, and he was taught us about that. But like I said, there's also like data wranglers that we were able to meet, and like people who like worked in production also. It was a very wide range. We also got to see some behind the scenes. I cannot say what shows we got to see the behind the scenes of, but think of basically the like VFX reels you might see, or like behind the scenes that sometimes shows or movies showcase, but we just got a bit more of the raw footages rather than like it being compiled neatly together. And that was also very fascinating to see, to like start from down there and see how it can be built up from then on for a full production. I did really love learning about the industry beyond the media team, because when I was taking the VFX class, because it's like students, we don't really have a huge circle and people's like individual jobs or responsibilities. We like, it wasn't as a biggest scale as the industry actually is. It's like a smaller scale of like the core people of like director, producer. There's a VFX artist, a VFX like supervisor, and then like maybe one other like person helping out who could be the assistant director. Like that's how like student stuff is run. But taking this class helped me realize like, oh no, like VFX is such a huge branch of trees of like, there is the visual people who like do the CGI, like really scuff CGI, like modeling of certain like animals or even like landscapes before it goes to then approval processes of actually being made to creations, to like more rendering of like perfect versions of like dragons. It's so fascinating. But it was one of the guest speakers talked about previous also, and that's why I'm like, cannot forget about it because I just did not think that existed, and that's how I learned about through this program. And like Shane mentioned, the in-person options. So not only did we had classes in person, but we also were able to visit certain studios like Technicolor, and it was just great to like be able to see what a studio environment kind of would be like. People weren't working necessarily in it, but you got to see the spaces, the look, and they also kind of like talked about how their work process was like, if they were like hybrid, remote, in person. And through that, you like met some recruiters. So there's a lot of opportunities. Like networking is abundant. You don't have to worry about that, but make sure to just absorb everything and learn as much as you can while talking to people. And yeah, and then like learn terminologies, and I love my cohorts. I was actually, I believe, the youngest one in my cohort. So that class and capstone class really saved me because like I said, that was the one thing I was holding on to everyone else had been in the industry and worked jobs within film, but more like in post or as like a PA. So it's also very fun to like hear their stories too when we go for like little dinners. But yeah, that was in general my favorite part, like which is almost the whole program of what I loved about it, and why I wanted to share it with y'all, since I just thought it was a very enlightening experience. So now I'll see if there's any questions. Um, just trying to go through this. Okay. Oh, okay.
Do you want to stop sharing?
Yes. There we go. Okie dokie. Okay, don't worry. I guess I kind of could give more tips, I guess, in terms of interviews while we wait for the questions to roll in regarding to the program. Another thing that I think sold me when I told you that there was recordings for the second interview, it wasn't like I did a face-to-face. I made sure the recordings, I did my best to showcase my personality and like give more story, since VFX is such a story-based like creative field. I was really like trying to hone into that. I love stories. I love being someone to help promote stories, make it all come together. And this is one way that I believe like magic can be created, because like anything you visualize can now possibly be actually created into VFX. Um, any age or experience for the program? Not sure if you answered that already. So for this specific one that I did for fall, you had to be 21 plus, and the experience limits was the like minimum was you had like a class experience with VFX, or did something in college related to it. But then if you just worked in post-production before, or did something related to VFX, like worked in a facility, or just had general knowledge about it, that's how you could have qualified for it. When it came to classes, how do you tackle the classes and work? Also, I'm working on a VFX film and never used a shot list for VFX before. Is there a template I can find? Okay, so first off, how I tackle classes and work. I actually did not have work at that time. I was only focusing on the classes, but I will say the homework was very manageable because it was in consideration that my other cohorts were working at the same time, and they had like deadlines, but as long as you communicated to Shane or David, you were able to like something later to get feedback. It wasn't obviously like you would get kicked off if you weren't showing up to classes or you weren't like really participating, but we didn't have the issue. And all of us were very engaging, and the homework was more for you to practice your skill sets. Like it was on you. If you want to take as much away possible and get as much feedback as much possible, you would do the homework. And then go to the office hours to ask questions about the homework, or during classes too. In terms of working, never using a shot list, where there's a template.
Do you want me to,
Yes.
do you want me to take that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan, what's your role on the film? Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can unmute.
Okay.
I unmuted myself. Crap.
Yay!
Sorry. I am God. Okay, I don't know the roles. I don't know the names. But
Okay.
I'm the person that did God. And Brad's right on my screen looking at me. I don't like that. I'm doing 3D for it. I'm doing compositing, and I'm also doing motion capture for it as well. So like we have everything
Okay.
filmed, and I needed to start editing really last week. But I saw when it came to a lot of the past Syracuse student projects, that there was like VFX sheets using, excuse me, using Excel or Google Sheets. And I always got amazed by them because they were so organized. But I don't know if there's like a template for it. I don't know if you'd be willing, if I can copy the sheet and then like change it for everything that is in the film. Because we do have like the mock environments all set up. We have the environments and lighting set up for everything. We just need to key and then grade and then composite and grade everything together. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's what I would do. So in general,
Is
I don't have
Shayna's?
like a template. Oh, go ahead, Shayna. You can answer too. No,
Sorry,
okay.
Shane.
No, you're good. You're good. So in general, I use ShotGrid for all of my tracking. So I don't really have like a template to share with you. Otherwise, I totally would. What I've seen specifically with like editorial always uses Google Docs and they share with us kind of as a cross check. I don't think it needs to be anything complicated. I think you just say, the shot name. Like, do you have names for all of your shots?
Yeah, we have it like labeled by
Okay.
like shot 2A, and then like if it goes like take, so like shot 2A3 or something upon those lines.
Okay. Well, if you have like your shot name, so you can have your name, have like a time code if that's helpful to you. You can have like a status and then like the latest note. I don't think it needs to be anything crazy. And you can kind of, what I would do is I would just color code them based on their status. So like if it's done and it's sent, I would make it green. If it's in progress, it would be yellow. So omitted, make it red. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think just even something like that, as long as you have like the most recent notes, you can kind of keep a history of what's going on with the shot, like in that cell. I think that would help you. But that's what I would recommend. But ShotGrid, if you can afford a ShotGrid license, ShotGrid is life changing.
Yes, but also if you get ShotGrid, there are like basic templates in like how it's constructed, but some shows more professionally have already someone who like made the template for their studio that they like to use. So that's why if you're just learning how to do like shot lists, that's why it's a great way to start with Excel to like know the key points. I also want to mention something that I'm a very visual person. I would add to your shot list maybe like a thumbnail of what that shot is, like a screenshot of it, because if you just see the names, you might not remember like what context that is for like the scene you're doing. So I always love to have like a little screenshot of what that video file or clip is.
Gotcha.
ShotGrid is an out of the box program though. You can use it straight out of the box without any changes or modifications. And you just have the license and you can plug all your shots into it. So
It's
if
not
you do,
free, though.
It's not free. No, you can get like a free trial on it. I think for 30 days. I'm not sure how long your show is going for, but I think after that it's like $50 a month. It is expensive, but it's a really great product.
So Ryan, the Google Doc I made that I use in my classes is based off of ShotGrid to mimic it as simply as possible for compositing. It's not really for CG and compositing and all these other kind of assets, but I'm sure you could modify it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if I can have access to it, please, and modify it. If I know I'm not a Syracuse student, but please,
you could be.
I could be. Brad, I'm changing sides.
No, grad school.
Grad school.
Brad, oh yeah.
You can have both. Yeah.
You get the
Brad,
best of both worlds.
Brad, I totally was not trying to change schools to hang out with Shayna. Yeah.
Nate, did you want to say something? Guess not. I don't know. Nate was chatting with me. He says no. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Zach has a question.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Thank you for coming to talk to us first. And then the second thing is my question is admittedly a little bit embarrassing. I arrived slightly late to this, and I didn't guys' introductions. So do you mind saying what you guys' specific roles were. And then I also was wondering, just for this program specifically, is it for VFX artists, or is it like the pre-production component? Like I was a little bit confused about what specific roles it was addressing. So I'm sorry that I know you definitely said that. I just was a little late. I'm sorry about that.
No, don't worry about it. That's why this is the question segment. So, so I'm Claudia Kim. I did this training program with Warner Brother Media Access
Mm.
for VFX coordinating. And this is not for VFX artists necessarily. This is more of learning the organizational part of VFX and the finances and like the programs to help and the different teams you have to work with in order to be part of the VFX cogwheel. And I'm actually was a student. I graduated May 2023. Did this program post grad, and also currently am working at Disney as a video multimedia intern. So that's my role. I was a student for the program.
Okay, cool.
And then I was her instructor. So I'm a visual effects producer. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, both vendor side and client side. Most recently, I've been working a lot with HBO the last like 5, 6 years. So I do all of like Sam Levinson's content, Euphoria, The Idol, Malcolm and Marie. I did season 2 of White Lotus. So Our Flag Means Death, my favorite one.
Cool.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Thank you.
So yeah, I feel like I hit all the questions, right? I don't know if there was something else I missed, or I know Shane was answering like about like how competitive I was, very competitive. I was very nervous because when I joined the info session, there was like about 2,000 people in the info session. And I was like, oh my God, how can Zoom handle 2,000 people? But it did somehow. So but it worked out.
And I would say the group that they picked was fantastic. Like everyone, what's really interesting about the cohort and who they chose was everyone came from a very different background. Like no two people were the same. And like when we had all of the networking events, like towards the end, like with the graduation, I don't feel like any two members of the cohort were fighting for the same job. It's like if you're looking for a certain skill set, everybody had such a wide range. Like some people came from a DI role. So some people had more color experience, some people had more editorial experience. There was one member of the cohort who had, he acted as a producer for smaller indie films. So he had production experience. Like everyone was so different. So if you're worried, like you're not coming from a visual effects background, I wouldn't be concerned about that because I feel like your background and what you're bringing to the table really just adds to the course and just adds to your skill set that you're presenting.
I think the main selling point, well, not main selling point, but one of the points is like they did mention like they would prefer if someone like had worked in VFX before or had some knowledge of VFX. But if you were passionate about it and said you were willing to learn, and like because you worked in some sort of just like film related role and you wanted to go beyond that and with this program, then I think there also was that's why like there were so many different people coming from different places with different jobs for this.
Yeah, I don't think anyone came from like a visual effects vendor. Did they, Claudia? Am I forgetting?
I
don't think
don't
anyone
think
was like
no one
came
was.
from visual effects directly,
but
they
they
wanted
have
to like make
worked,
the change into it.
yeah, most of them that I remember did work in post-production in some way, or being a PA. So like if you had like
Yeah.
some knowledge in the sense of the industry, but like I was the like odd one out kind of, where I did not have any experience with the industry, but I did have. So that was what made me, I guess, different from the other cohorts. I did have some knowledge of VFX. Well, the rest were more into the actual like production or editorial side. Hi, Zach.
Hi, Claudia. I have a question for both of you guys. I'm wondering, I just graduated with you, Claudia, and I'm kind of wondering like how you kind of stay in practice and kind of like maybe prepare for that program or like after that program, maybe if you're on work, like how do you kind of keep your skills fresh if that is like a problem for you guys at all?
I can go because I'm currently not working in VFX, but like how I prepare that and prepared for now. So before I mentioned that I did the social media design job, and I had the reason why I even got that job in the first place was because for the capstone class, I don't know if you remember, I did a lot of presentation slides. So visually, like kind of organizing that, being able to show like different parts about it, and different like options to use for like visual effects, or like having visual references. So like in that sense, like I was able to like organize in that way. And I think another part was like I also love Excel, so even my daily life, I'm kind of using it. So if like just recently my family came to visit and I used Excel to keep track of all our expenses. So and like color coded it of like food, like, and if it was like merch or if it was for the rides, like I think that kind of, I know you can't really use that on your portfolio, but it's like it does keep you more on practice. Currently how I'm using it to practice is like, for example, like naming conventions at my internship. They allowed me to do my own naming conventions as long as I know how the files are and they kind of can understand it. I can name whatever I want. And so I'm using like the VFX way of like the acronyms or like the name of it. And then also I have like, I don't use an Excel sheet for this job currently, but I do have like a Google document of everything I'm keeping track of, what I'm working on, what days I've been working on. In that sense, like I'm just trying to keep my mind sharp of like what I have to point out and focus. And I also, when I have time, try to learn more like visual effects, like artist skills, like just with After Effects as long as I can. And I'm also been like, I went down the rabbit hole of LinkedIn and like seeing what everyone's like the VFX reels are like, just seeing what up to date on that side and what things are being created. Uh, up to you now, Shane.
Oh, okay. I'm like, you gave such a good answer. So it's tough. It's such a weird time to graduate right now because there are so few films and projects happening. So if there's something going on, even if it's just like a volunteer project, I would recommend doing it just to keep yourself sharp and keep yourself, active and doing whatever. Like there's a couple like indie projects for me coming up that normally we wouldn't take on, but it's like we just want to keep present and keep sharp and just do it. So highly recommend, even if it's like an internship or something where you can get your feet wet and learn, recommend doing that. Also focusing on networking is always a good idea. You never know when you're going to meet the right person.
Nathan?
And I totally
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shane.
Hi.
No, I was also going to say I also agree with Eric in the chat about, your personality taking you a long way. Like, so go ahead. Sorry, Nathan.
No, no, it's okay. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to say, yeah, Claudia, I just was looking this up because I saw it popped up, I think on your LinkedIn or a couple of months ago. And I just looked into the program a while ago and it really does look amazing. So that's a really cool experience and I'm glad you got to do that. Um, so being somebody who is an artist and is wanting to get into the coordinator program, um, it does that sort of detriment me at all by not having sort of producer or coordinator experience in school necessarily. I had a little bit, but I felt like I was more of an artist. So yeah, I'm just wondering how that affects sort of my application, I guess.
I think, do you want to take it, Shane, or do you want me
I'm
to?
like, sure, I can take this one. I think they would
Okay.
actually be very interested in your application. I think they would be very interested in someone who understands how visual effects works. Personally, I went to school to be an artist at Chapman. I went that route and I ended up in an IO editorial position at Gradient for a little while before I moved on to being a coordinator. And I can't tell you how much having artist experience and understanding how visual effects works has helped me in being a producer and in production, because having that understanding helps you communicate better with clients, and it also helps you communicate better with your artists as a vendor. to be able to understand what they're going through and to be able to help them. So I think it would actually give you an edge, to be honest.
That's that's really helpful to hear because I do have about a year and a half of experience at a post house, a really small post house.
It's awesome.
But yeah, I definitely would love to transition into sort of a coordinator position. I realize that I'm not quite as skilled with my arts, so I would like to do something a little bit less artistic and something a little bit more based in oversight and sort of working on along the whole workflow. So
Totally.
yeah.
I was a terrible artist. I was really terrible. Like I tried my best, but like I did not have the patience for rotoing hairs and
Right.
all of that. I was not good. So
Yeah,
you
it
find your calling
gets,
elsewhere.
yeah, most definitely. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I definitely also realized like while I love still learning how to do the artist side of things and like practicing in my own time, I definitely knew like it wasn't bringing as much joy in doing the artist parts. I loved seeing other people do the artwork more and me being able to help them achieve that. So that's why I went down that road. It's not just towards you, Nathan, because we work together. So you already know the spiel. But for the people in general who are like thinking of going to coordinator role, that's how I chose to go down the coordinator route because I love VFX, love everything about it. Just knew my limits as an artist. Doesn't mean I don't want to keep practicing. Maybe one day I will become an artist. Who knows? But currently I'm just like, I just love VFX, want to stay with it, and I love organizing and Excel sheets. So it worked out.
That's really awesome. And I'm so glad because you were a great coordinator for all of our capstone projects. And I think you worked on a couple of visual effects projects too. So it's
Thanks.
awesome to see that you're still doing all that stuff. Very cool.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm still working with After Effects in my current job. So I'm doing still some animation or like VFX kind of. I like VFX out like shadows out of some videos. Because I was like, I know how to do that. So you never know. Even in post-production, even knowing a little bit of VFX could help you make your videos better. It's just like the simple stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think After Effects will follow me around for
Yeah.
the rest of my life. So
Oh, I agree. You and me, buddy.
yeah. Yeah.
um, let's see,
Thank you
let's
both
see.
though. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. um, Trying to see if there was a question. Oh, yes, Zach.
If you're a vendor,
Mhm.
what does that mean specifically?
So the vendors are the people who are actually doing the work. So if you're client side, you're
Okay.
managing all of the vendors and you hire them. So like you hire the companies
Oh, okay.
to do the
Yeah.
visual effects work for you. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you.
thanks. No, of course.
And the other side, just like fun fact to throw out there because I'm trying to be a nerd. Is that like so if you're not on the vendor side, you'll be on what I believe you say studio side, and they're the ones like funding for it. They're the ones that like want to put the team together, have someone in charge of all the different vendors are working on different shots for the show and putting it together, and communicating what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do. So I hope that's a good tip. Because
Yeah,
like you
cool.
can work
Thank you.
on because you can work on vendor and client side, but like if you want to do more artsy stuff, it would definitely be more on the vendor side. If you're more like going to more of like coordinator or like managing everyone, like a producer, there you go towards the client side.
Cool. Thank you. I'd never heard those specific terms, but that makes a lot of sense now. Thanks.
Zach, are you at Ithaca?
Yes, I am. I've had Brad.
Okay. You can talk to me at some point.
Absolutely.
If you want to talk about industry, let me know.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I always I pop in for these whenever I have the chance, but almost all the time Tuesday nights don't work for me, unfortunately. But yeah. But thank you.
And YouTube channel always have recordings too. So check those out.
if that's all the questions, we are at 9. So I want to thank Shane and Claudia for their amazing presentation and inaugural VFX coordinator program, which I'm sure will produce so many new junior level coordinators into this world, and we'll all be better for it. And Shane will look out for your work that's coming out this year. And then Claudia is in a 1-year program at Disney. So she'll be back a year from now to hopefully do this again with the current program.
Well, yes, hopefully we'll see how I come out of it. But
I don't know if you want to tease what you're doing now, Claudia.
oh, I can do it. So right now I like I said, I at the same time as I applied for the VFX Winter Brother program, I applied for the current job I'm doing right now. I am under what we call the Wishes Creative Team. It's an acronym. Disney loves their acronyms. It stands for Worldwide Safety, Health, Engineering, and Sourcing. And I just learned today there's even acronyms within the acronym, but I will not go into detail of that. But I'm in more of the safety department learning. So I make so the employers are called cast members because you guys are the guests and you're the audience. So the cast member, I make videos for the cast member training, specifically more for attractions for engineers. So so I get to go see the cool rides at night or very early in the morning and make training videos for those who are also interns or for new hires working that part of the attraction. So that's my main job. I do other stuff too, but that's my main job.
Don't rub it in. I get to go to the rides when no one else is here.
I don't always get to ride it. That's a whole different story. But I get to see it with the lights on, or like I get to see all the few that haven't been cleaned up. But like there's the pros and cons.
Cool.
So don't ask you for
forward.
sneak peeks on Tiana, is what you're saying. Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Got it.
I will be very much fired. I will be maybe not allowed to be on any Disney property if that was the case.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you guys so much for having me as well. It's been a really fun time. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.